Alright, good afternoon. Alright, so on number 18 on your warm-up. So in order to write the equation, first thing we have to do is find our slope. So we go down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, negative 1/4. So y equals negative 1/4 x. And it goes through at plus 2. So that would be the correct equation for number 1 on your 18 on your warm-up. On number 19, so they give us our equation in standard form, so the first thing we have to do is move it into slope-intercept form by adding x to both sides. So I get negative 5y equals x plus 22, and then I'm going to divide by negative 5, so I divide everything by negative 5. So y equals a negative 1/5 x minus 4.4. So when you graph it, you can kind of create the graph how you want. So I'm going to make my x-intercept right there and my y-intercept. So 4.4, negative 4.4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is about right here. And then I'm going to go up 1 and then over 1. I'm going to go down 1 because I have a negative slope. And over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your graph should look a little something like that. And again, you can create your graph to look how you want. I know some people made this the x-axis and this the y-axis. It's up to you guys. And then on number 20, you're solving your equation. First step is to distribute. So 6 minus 3x equals 24. So we're going to subtract 6. So negative 3x equals 18. So then divide by negative 3. So x equals a negative 6. Alright, go ahead and put your warm-up away. Then you're going to take out your homework to grade. Alright, so looking at today's notes. Alright, to start off, so question 1 says to write an equation of a line parallel and perpendicular to the lines given. Alright, so if we look at the first example they give us, our line is a horizontal line, so our equation for the line given is y equals 4. Because every horizontal line has a slope of 0, so then whatever our y-intercept is our equation. So for a parallel line, because they don't give us a certain point to draw our parallel line to, we just need to make another parallel line. So I can pick any point and draw another line. So another parallel line would be y equals 1. Or I could do this line down here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so y equals negative 5. So those would be examples of parallel lines to the line given. Now if I want to look at perpendicular, so perpendicular to a horizontal is going to be a vertical line. So remember, a vertical line has a slope that is undefined. So when our slope is undefined, all of our vertical equations will start out with x equals. Okay, so I again can pick any point, any line I want, but it just needs to be a vertical line for a perpendicular line. So I could pick this line, so my perpendicular line could be x equals negative 1. Or I could pick over here and do x equals 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's multiple options because they didn't give us a given point to draw the line perpendicular or parallel to. So as long as it makes a 90-degree angle or it is parallel, then they would be considered the correct answers. So let's look at the other one. So this time they give us a vertical line. So our equation for this vertical line is going to be x equals negative 3. Because x is negative 3 on every point of that line. So if I wanted to create a line parallel to it, so I again can pick any line as long as it's parallel. So say this one. So it's another vertical line. So this equation would be x equals a positive 3. Or I could have picked this line. So x would be negative 6. Okay, so those are parallel to my given line. Or now for your perpendicular line. So our perpendicular line is going to be a horizontal line. So again, I can pick any point I want. So let's say I want to pick this point. So because it's horizontal, our equation is going to be y equals, and the y-intercept is negative 3. So y would equal negative 3. Or I could do this point up here. And I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y equals a positive 5. Okay, so when they don't give us a given point, all we have to remember is that for parallel lines, the slopes are the same and the y-intercepts are different. And for perpendicular lines, they are opposite reciprocal slopes, and then our y-intercept can be the same or different. Normally it's different, but it could be the same or different. All right, let's move on. So for each graph below, write an equation for the parallel line. So yesterday when we were writing our equations, we were given the equation of the line we were wanting to find a line parallel or perpendicular to. Today they gave us the graph. So all I need to get from the line that they give us is the slope. So I just need to find the slope of the given line. And then I can use that information to write a line parallel to it. So if I look at my first example, my slope goes down 3 and over 2. So my slope is negative 3 halves that I need to use to write a line parallel. So to start my equation, it would be y equals negative 3 halves x. And then as we kind of talked about just a minute ago, so for parallel lines, they have to have the same slope and then different y-intercepts. So at this point, I can pick any y-intercept as long as it's not the same y-intercept of our current line. So I'm just going to pick 2. So when I go to graph it at 2, and I go down 1, 2, 3 over 2, or reverse the other way, I've now created a line parallel to the one that they gave us. And again, I could pick any y-intercept as long as my slope was the same. So I could have done y equals negative 3 halves x minus 4. Would have given me another parallel line. It just would have been in down here somewhere. If I can draw a straight line, that would be awesome. But somewhere down here. Okay? So let's try the next one. So what's our slope for our next one? So we go up 4 and over 2. So our rise over run is 4 over 2. So our slope is 2. So to create a line parallel, I just have to have the same slope. So y equals 2x. And then again, I can pick any y-intercept. So if I can write my equation as y equals 2x. And that would put my line going through the origin. Is it still parallel? Yes. Okay, or I could write y equals 2x plus 2. Or even y equals 2x minus 4. As long as they have the same slope and different y-intercepts, then they will be parallel. All right, try the last one with your group. All right, so if you take a look at this slope, our slope should be rise over run, so 1/6. So I can write any equation, so y equals 1/6x minus 10, y equals 1/6x plus 2, as long as it has a different y-intercept, but the same slope, then we have a parallel line. All right, now let's try looking at our perpendicular lines. So remember, our perpendicular lines for our slope have to be the opposite reciprocal. Okay, so these graphs are actually the same graphs that we just had for our parallel, so we already know our slope. So our slope originally for this line was -3/2. So the slope I need to use to create my new equation needs to be a positive 2/3, the opposite reciprocal. Okay, so y equals 2/3 x. And again, as long as we have the opposite reciprocal slope, I can choose any y-intercept and it would be perpendicular. I can even choose the same y-intercept. So for instance, if I graph this one, it would just go through the same y-intercept, but is still perpendicular. Okay, or I can choose a new one. So y equals 2/3 x plus 2. Or y equals 2/3 x, and it goes to the origin. As long as it has opposite reciprocal slopes, they are perpendicular. Okay, let's try our next one. So our slope we had on this one was 4/2, or 2. So my opposite reciprocal slope that I'm going to use is -1/2, because it's the opposite and the reciprocal. So y equals a -1/2 x, and I'm just going to pick +3 for my y-intercept. So if I was to graph it, it's going to go down 1/2, up 1/2. So it just happens to go through, it just happens to go through that point on that line that they actually gave us. Okay. Again, you can pick any y-intercept. You could do y equals -1/2 x minus 3, or y equals 1/2 x. As long as it has this opposite reciprocal slope, it will be perpendicular. And I'll give you just a moment with your group to do the last example. So remember, our slope for this one was 1/6. So the opposite reciprocal slope that we're going to use is going to be a -6. So for my equation, I just picked y equals -6x plus 15. But you can pick anything. Y equals -6x minus 2. Right? All right, let's go on to the back. So on the back, we're going to create an equation for a perpendicular line that passes through the given point. So this time they gave us the graph, they gave us a point. So we have to use that point in order to make our equation. All right, so the first thing I have to do is find my slope. So I'm going to go down 2, so -2, and then over 3. So my slope for this equation is a -2/3. So if I'm writing an equation perpendicular, then I need to take the opposite reciprocal. So I'm going to use the slope of a positive 3/2. Okay, so they gave us the point. I could graph it, but I'm not going to have enough room, because I can go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2, but I can't really go down 3 and over 2. It's kind of off the graph. So in order to find my y-intercept to write my equation, flashback to yesterday, I have a slope and I have a point, so I'm going to put it in point-slope form. So y plus 6, because this point is at a -6y, right, equals, my slope is 3/2 times x minus 3, because I'm at a positive 3 on the x-axis. So then when I solve, y plus 6 equals 3/2 x, and then I would get minus 9/2. Then I subtract 6, so I'm going to get kind of an ugly fraction, but y equals 3/2 x. So then when I subtract 9/2 and 6, 9/2 is really 4.5. So negative 4.5 minus 6 would give me a y-intercept of negative 10.5. So this would be my equation for a perpendicular line to the one given. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So the next one, we are looking at writing an equation for a line parallel to the one given that passes through the points. So when I look at my equation, I got to find my slope. So my slope goes up 5 and over 1. So my slope on this one is 5, and because I'm writing a parallel line, I get to use the same equation, or the same slope. And again, I can't really graph it because I don't have enough room on my graph, so I'm just going to use my point, which is negative 3/5, and put my equation in slope form. So y minus 5 equals 5 times x minus 3, plus 3, because we have a negative 3 as our x. So then y minus 5 equals 5x plus 15. And then I'm going to add 5. So y equals 5x plus 20 would be my line parallel that passes through the given point. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and stop there. If you need a little bit extra practice, you can do the last two examples. They're actually the same examples, but you're going to end up writing the opposite line that we already did. If you have any questions, make sure to ask. Have a great day.